Final story here. J.J. McCarthy is coming off 2 knee surgeries this offseason. Not great, but he's been cleared this spring for full participation in the Vikings offseason program. McCarthy is very confident in himself as the team is in him.
I know I'm ready to start. I appreciate that question, Kevin, because all the work I put in and just the confidence in my skills and abilities and just being able to do my job and simplify things to, the best of my ability every single day and, just take it one day at a time, one play at a time. And, I have a tremendous coaching staff, a tremendous group of guys around me that I can lean on, and they can lean on me.
Fourth place finish.
Looks like he's headed to stagecoach maybe with that hat backwards. Do you have any deep thoughts on the hat backwards? Looks like he needs a haircut. Doesn't look like a buttoned-up franchise quarterback to me. But I'm all in on the Vikings, just for the record.
I'm all in on the Lions winning it and the Bears going to a wild card spot. I think Green Bay and Minnesota will be well coached, but I think the division. It's like there's 2 divisions in football: the AFC West, Broncos, Raiders, Chiefs, Chargers, potentially 3 playoff teams. The 4th place team will be good. The second division, that's the best division in football. The second best division is the NFC North. Minnesota could win 8 games with JJ and be a really good team. But I'm sorry. They're not pulling off last year's win total. That's not happening. They have a much tougher schedule. They're not doing it. That is the easiest team in the league to pull back a win total.
Okay. Well, we got to find the win total first. I will say, in the mock draft that I did for 2026, I just did it in win total order, and the Minnesota Vikings are drafting 15th. So the league thinks they're like a 500 slightly above team.
That's right. That's
Vegas
what I think
does, I should say. Vegas.
Yeah.
Should say.
Yeah.
Okay. Guys, obviously them coming back in the wins makes sense considering how many, what are we expecting them to win? 15, 16 games, 17? How many games do we play these days? 20 games? 20 wins? What are we saying here? That's, when you win a ton of games, you're going to expect some sort of pullback, and you have a first-year starter, but it doesn't mean that they're necessarily set up to fall off a cliff. To me, this remains to be one of the more fascinating stories, and I talked about this a little bit in a previous video, but this seems to actually be the better playground for this conversation. This whole idea of how good the Minnesota Vikings have been and how great this roster has been. And what we've seen, the success and the wins that Kevin O'Connell and this Vikings team has had, even with an inferior roster compared to what I believe they have now, whether it was with Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins, etc., etc. And I believe, the coaching staff is more experienced. The players like the Justin Jeffersons of the team are more experienced. So even some of the guys that were around there in a few, within the last couple of years, those players even better, not to mention the additional talent that you now brought in. And, I really kind of asked the question to people where it's just what if J.J. McCarthy is just an average quarterback in terms of his first year? Not to say that that's what he's going to be or what he will always be, but let's just say he has an average year where you come away and say, yeah, he played pretty good. Wasn't earth-shattering, didn't light the league on fire, wasn't garbage, wasn't trash. He was he was pretty good, pretty solid, pretty good first year. What does that mean? What does that make of this Vikings team? If you think that the Vikings are going to be in 4th place, like Colin said, and that this team will win 8 or 9 games or something, that means, and you're expecting J.J. McCarthy to just not have a good season, essentially. Because I don't see how J.J. McCarthy could be a pretty good quarterback, play at the level of essentially, I don't even want to say Jaden Daniels because he had such a prolific rookie year, but trying to think, an average, a decent year one, because it's so hard to think of names because they trigger so many different people. Because I think Bo Nix played pretty well last year. I use Caleb Williams as a reference point as well because it wasn't perfect, wasn't terrible, wasn't necessarily great either. But if you have Kevin O'Connell in this roster, it's how many wins does that lead to? So it's just interesting. It really, really is to try to figure out what is this team and how successful can they be with just average quarterback play. I really think that that's the best question to ask. because then you're taking all of it off of essentially JJ McCarthy. And again, I'm not saying that I think JJ is going to be average. I think we're going to get a little bit of everything. I think we're going to get some games and some moments when he's average, some games and some moments where he plays awesome, some games, some moments where he's downright terrible. It's what happens to every rookie quarterback. So it's just like, but where will it average out to? Will it average out to just average, to good, to great, to excellent, to bad? Hard to see that it's just going to be bad, because I think even if he's a deer in headlights, even if he's lost and there's so much going on, I believe that the Vikings have the roster and the team and the coaching staff with Kevin O'Connell that they'll still be successful. They'll still find ways to win games. So I think if JJ McCarthy is really kind of overwhelmed, outside of him being like an absolute disaster, where it's just like, oh man, this was a bad pick, or like he is not good. Like this is, we're really having real conversation about bust, right? He's playing like AR out there with the Colts. Outside of that, if he just plays pretty good, just average, like a decent, first year, well, then I feel like this Vikings team has to come away with some healthy wins. I think you're going to win, 10 games, say, like you'll be right in that playoff hunt. I think that's a totally fair assessment. I think the only way that you come across to having like 8 or 9 wins or less is if JJ McCarthy really has a handful of games where you're just like, oh, dude, you were down by 3 minutes left to go, and you made a throw and you threw an interception. It was like, you did not need to do that. Just check the ball down. You had so-and-so for 5 yards, and he would have been able to run for another 15, 20. Like, you did not, and you have a couple of those moments. He's holding on the ball too long, and he gets stripped, fumble, and you just lose these games. If he plays really good, if he's who the Vikings think he is, well, then this team's definitely not winning 8 or 9 games. They're definitely winning more games than that. And if he's really overwhelmed, and it just seems like this the year one is just a little bit too big for him, I still think that they could win 8, 9 games just because of the roster and the coaching staff itself. If they really just rely on JJ to throw the ball 20 times and every single throw is like 2 yards, I feel as though that this team will still find a way. Kevin O'Connell will find a way. The defense will understand. Flores will understand, okay, this is what we're working with here. And again, these are not predictions. I'm just trying to lay out all the different options here. So, yeah. This is going to be one of the more fascinating stories going into the NFL right now. Because just look at the year that Bo Nix had. And granted, again, they're coming off different years in terms of the franchises, the Broncos and the Vikings, in terms of what the Broncos were coming off of in 23 and what the Vikings were coming off of in 24. And so, the Broncos had a tougher schedule, but they still had to go up against multiple playoff teams, the Chiefs and the Chargers. And the Vikings do have that as well. They have to go up against the the Bears, the Lions, and the Packers. And I think the Bears are going to be better too. So like, that's probably at the end of the day the hardest part of trying to figure out. I think if they were in not such a tough division, it would be so much easier to feel that this team could definitely make the playoffs. But I do believe that this division is going to be so ruthless and so tough. And the reality is that the other teams and the other quarterbacks do have the leg up because they've actually played in the NFL. Like that's just a fact. You could be the biggest JJ McCarthy fan and you have to say, yeah, even Caleb, even if you believe that JJ is going to be better than Caleb, like Caleb does have the leg up. He's played in the NFL. He's played against the Vikings multiple times. He's played against the Lions. He's played against, the Packers. Like he's been there. JJ has not, right? So by definition, he's got that leg up. He's got that experience. And so that is something that JJ obviously will be learning this season. So, yeah. This is definitely just kind of more of a wait and see thing, but outside of JJ just being trash and just really, really struggling, and Kevin O'Connell's like, man, I just cannot run this offense the way how I want to with this kid right now. There's just so much more we have to work with here. Then, outside of that, I'd have to really look at the schedule. And I'd also have to see the order of the schedule when it officially gets announced. Just, last place, 8 or 9 wins. I don't know. And win totals over the last few years have been a little bit stretched. So, 8 or 9 wins doesn't mean that you're this trash team. right? And in a lot of ways, it means like you're just a game away from being in the playoffs, right? You're just a game away from being in the play, from being in the wild card. And so that could happen, which is why I use the example of like, does JJ McCarthy, does he check the ball down and take care of the ball, and now they kick a field goal to tie the game up? Or does he try to do a little bit too much and he forces the ball through a tight window and gets an interception, with 2 minutes left? And it's just like, no, bro, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that, right? Like that's honestly how I see this season unfolding, more than anything, quite frankly. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about JJ McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings? I guess apparently needing a haircut, not looking like a franchise quarterback according to these guys, and coming in 4th place in the NFC North and missing the playoffs. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.